This is Pop Culture Confidential, and I'm Christina Yerling Biru. Why me? That's what Bill Skarsgård asked himself when he was approached to play the terrifying Count Orlok in Robert Eggers' much-awaited new film Nosferatu. But that's also precisely what attracted him to the role. Bill Skarsgård adds a level of depth, turmoil, and intelligence to pretty much any part he plays, and several have been villains and monsters, from Pennywise the Clown in the adaptations of Stephen King's It, to the well-dressed Marquis, the villain in the fourth installment of the John Wick franchise. Now Bill is back exploring his dark side as the vampire Count Orlok. And he has a long history with Nosferatu. He was first introduced to the 1922 classic by his father, actor Stellan Skarsgård. I was very pleased to talk to him about his new film. He says that throughout his career, he's never put as much into a project as he has with this one. The voice work, the research, his preparation started already in his hometown of Stockholm, Sweden. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu also stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, and Willem Dafoe.
Once upon a time. Professor, he stole to me in my dreams.
This creature has chained itself to your wife.
Impossible.
Its sole impulse is to consume all life on Earth. He is coming. Only you can redeem us.
He's coming.
Who's coming? Nosferatu.
Bill, thanks so much for joining me. Robert Eggers, he has a long history with Nosferatu. He even performed a play in high school. But the thing is that you do too, I understand. Tell me about teenage Nosferatu.
Oh, you've done your research. Yes, my dad introduced me to the movie when I was a kid. We would have like movie nights, me and Stellan, and he would. We had a silent film era phase where he would mostly Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton and the funny ones, but also Nosferatu. So that was the first time I saw it, and was enamored by it, and also the story around the film itself, which is almost as iconic and mythological as the movie. And yes, and then I did a short film in Sweden called Pigan brinner, where I played teenage Nosferatu. It was a very interesting short film, and I was 16.
I love it.
They shot it on an actual old hand-cranked film camera, silent film camera. And my character was teenage Nosferatu. So then I actually studied Nosferatu to play him as a 16-year-old. So how ironic.
It's a long time. Yeah. Many legendary performances in terms of Nosferatu. We have Max Schreck from 1922, Klaus Kinski, of course, your co-star Willem Dafoe played Nosferatu in Shadow of a Vampire. After an 8-year hunt, Bill Skarsgård is Nosferatu. You've said it was a scary part for you to embark on. What intimidated you most about taking on this character?
Well, I think for me, for some reason, the jobs I tend to attract or be attracted by are characters that I read the script and I love the script, and then I go, why me? And with this one, obviously such a huge fan of Robert, been dying to work with him, almost did work with him a couple of times. And then when he approached me with the possibility, the potential to potentially play Orlok, I was thrilled and so excited. But at the same time, I'm like, why? the character doesn't even look like me when he was alive. It's a 400-year-old undead sorcerer vampire. The voice he wants a voice that's 400 years old, and I just did not know if I could be truthful and if I could be authentic and if I could really make this character come alive. I did not know, and that terrifies you, because I do not want to let Robert down, and I knew how important this film was to him, and I didn't want to let myself down, So, but it did motivate me to work, harder than I have ever worked to prep a character. That goes without saying. I've never put in this much work and preparation for a character in my career, and that was the point.
You were mentioning the voice. I understand you worked with an opera singer in order to conceive of that voice.
Yeah, I worked a lot on it by myself for the screen test that we did. So I would record. I would look up how do you make your voice as deep as possible? What are the techniques for it? And then I convinced everybody that I could do it on my tape, screen test, and then the movie got postponed another time, and we didn't end up shooting the film until 2 years after I had booked the part, and I was like, oh, I forgot everything I did. Like, I had to go back and study my tape to know where we were at, and I'd been through a lot and done a lot of different characters in the intermediate. But yes, I worked with an opera singer, Asa Jonisdottir, who's married to Sean, who wrote The Northman, actually. So she's a very acclaimed opera singer and Icelandic and knows Robert. And Robert connected us, and we started the process. It was lovely, actually. I met her for the first time in person in Berlin for the world premiere, because we'd only been doing remote Zooms, which is tricky in its own right, because
I can imagine. You
would it's so physical, and hearing the voice resonate is different in a room than it is over a microphone. But it was lovely to meet her, and she said, "Oh, it was amazing to see to hear the voice." She said, and she was, she approved of the work, and she'd been part of the process when it wasn't great until the result.
But I know you really go into it, because I remember reading about Pennywise, that you were driving in your car with your own clown makeup to prepare to go into the audition. Is this self-tape for Orlok still around? I mean, that must have been something to see.
Yeah, it is. It is still around. I still have it. I went to a studio here in Södermalm with a director of photography friend of mine helped me shoot it with an actual camera, and we were in a studio and we lit it. We did a little, we lit it so it would create an ambience, and Adam Lundgren, the red Ellen, who's one of my best friends, and yes, I actually went to Frihamnen and picked out an outfit to wear for the tape. I would and as I was doing this, I would back and forth with Robert on all of these different ideas, and I went to SVT's giant wardrobe facility and started picking out clothes, and then I would try clothes, and then I would live send it to Robert for a response, and no, this one, that one, and I glued nails on top of my nails to have the Orlok nails, and then just slick back my hair to be as bald as I could.
Because this is, of course, a very makeup-dependent role. And I think it's fascinating that Eggers has said that he wanted someone who we all know is beautiful, and we feel that, but of course we can't see that, except for that you do that very much in your eyes in this role. Mm. What is it like to work so makeup-dependently as it is on this film?
It is. It's a form of mask work, So, and it's a process. You construct the character in your living room, and you work on the voice and different postures, and you explore different ways, but there's a big piece missing, and that's the look of the character. What does the mask look on your face? Can you make it come alive? Can you make it not feel like a mask? Can you embody it? And how does your face translate onto the new face that you have? So the first time you put it on, you're studying each stage of it, and I'm like, okay, what? I know the first time I tried it on was probably 2 months before we started to shoot, so we had leeway. We could change things, and I looked at it. I'm like, I'm not sure if I can make this feel real. That was my biggest concern. Like, if it doesn't feel real, then we can't do it, you know. And then yes, I was very critical to, like, okay, what's going on here? And like, how does my face? And I felt that before the final pieces, you know, the hair pieces and the facial hair pieces came about, I'm like, I look like a fucking goblin. Like, this is like, it's a very good, but it feels like an elaborate Halloween costume. Like, what's going on? And it wasn't until the final pieces and the wardrobe came on where I looked at myself in the mirror, played around with the voice and different expressions, and I saw, okay, well, actually, I think I can perform through this and make it come alive.
You did, because this is not Bela Lugosi in a tuxedo, but this is still it's a dead corpse, but that oozes desire and obsession and sexuality, and I think you really did that. Eggers was raised by a Shakespeare professor, and his mom had a theater company for kids. You were raised with an actor, stage, screen. Do you guys have a similar approach kind of on set because of these cultural theater backgrounds that you come from?
I don't know. I mean, I remember meeting Robert for the first time. I just seen The Witch. It was a general meeting in New York, and I just saw the movie. And I was like, okay, that movies just blew my mind. And at the time, it spoke to all of my sensibilities. I just felt that this guy was a special talent, a special filmmaker, and he was into stuff that I was into at that time. And then when we met, you know, we had a few drinks in the East Village in New York, and then it became very clear to me that those generals are almost like a blind date somehow. You know, you don't know how they're going to go, and they're not always great, and sometimes you want to get out of there as fast as you can. But with him, what stood out to me was his approach to the craft, how detail oriented he was, what a perfectionist he is. That, you know, he's never satisfied with anything that he does, and I can relate to that, and also his integrity. His creative integrity, that he doesn't want to compromise. He wants to make his vision, and he believes in his vision. And that sort of confidence that he had on his vision and his voice was something that I could relate to, and also something I admired. So from every time, like from that point and on of meeting him, I felt that I need to work with him, and in some ways perhaps destined to, and here we are.
What was his vision of Orlok and the story in general? I mean, we're saturated by vampire stories, and what is it it feels like he's gone more folklore on this particular movie. What would you say his sort of concept was behind the vampire story in general?
He wanted to make it Ellen's movie. He wanted Ellen to be the protagonist.
Lily Rose Depp is amazing,
She's
by the way.
Absolutely phenomenal. It's an undeniable performance. He wanted the original movie tends to Ellen becomes the protagonist in the second half of the film, but he wanted it to be her movie from the get-go. And then, of course, because he's striving for historical accuracy, he wanted his version of Orlok to be rooted in Transylvanian folklore. everything from the look of the character to the clothes, the hairstyle, the mustache, everything. And because he's so research dependent and oriented, we all felt that we were trying to bring back a time that doesn't exist anymore, and a mythology, a state of mind that doesn't exist anymore. And I think that that's part of his brilliance. If you go back and look at The Witch, for instance, it is a meditation on the mind, with people living in 17th century New England, and with this one, it's a meditation on the mind of 1830s, but with my character also 1500s.
And also the real aspect of people's fears then, if it was, the plague, the Dracula myth was, of course, a manifestation of what they were going through in a sense, which I feel that he really brings out in this one. Yeah. You've played a few villains. I don't remember who said it, but someone said, I prefer a real villain to a false hero. Do you enjoy playing villains, and how do you get into that mode to make them interesting?
That's a great quote, because a lot of heroes are false. There's a conventional hero is almost always false. So there's in more conventional narrative films, the villain in a lot of ways is more real because they're flawed, and we're all flawed. But if you make in a good layered film, you shouldn't have a hero, or the hero should be an anti-hero or a complex hero that's heavily flawed. And with villains, you go as flawed as you can get, and there's complexity in that, and it's also fun because you get to explore a part of yourself that is not allowed to be explored potentially in real life. And it's, you go through these kind of mental gymnastics of trying to figure out the psychology with a character that is scary or daunting. And I mean, with this one, it was...
Yeah, what was the psychology behind Orlok?
Yeah, I mean, the research helped. So there was, Robert shared research material for me, and I also... dug up my own of getting a sense of the sort of Transylvanian or the Romanian view on vampires. He had written a backstory to the character, just a couple of pages, that was helpful.
Can you tell us what that backstory was?
I don't know if it's part of the mystery, and there's a reason for why it's never properly introduced in the film. But it's fascinating. I mean, you could make that story. The origins of him would be an amazing film as well, I think.
That's where you come in with Teenage Nosferatu.
Exactly. Yes.
Now we want to see that movie in your hands.
But the problem is that when he was alive, he did not look like me either. So I would have to wear the same amounts of prosthetics. But even when he was alive and well and handsome, I think he was a handsome man. I mean, I think there is. It's as grotesque as the look of the character is. There is something masculine and handsome about him, regal, But,
and obviously obsessive and passionate.
No, but it's the psychology behind him. Robert's scripts are incredible to read. They almost feel like an artifact in itself, because they are so rooted in historical accuracy. And so, thousands of hours of research, they feel like an artifact from that time. Not only in the dialogue, but also in the descriptions of the script. So there's all these clues. There's clues to the psychology of Orlok in the things that von Franz, Willem Dafoe's characters say. He is. It doesn't feel like exposition, but he does deliver. He's the one that explains to the audience what he is, what Nosferatu is, and what Ellen is going through. So there was all of these little clues. And then also in stuff that Orlok says himself. There's the scene that the first time he meets Ellen in person, he's explaining, he's talking about where he's coming from, and a loathsome creature, and she stirred him from his grave. All of those lies, and he's an appetite, nothing more. And there's fragility in it. There's almost sadness in it. Now, we never wanted to go down the sad vampire route, the Klaus Kinski version of it. He's a force, and he's and sort of this unmovable force. But there's moments to pierce through that with fragility. And then also, for me personally, Orlok lives in a different realm. He's an occult sorcerer, and he's an occult sorcerer that I've gone all the way, like with the Faustian bargain, all the way. So, I explored, why would you do that? What type of personality is it that would take this? And there's endearing qualities in it. I think it's a very thin line from true messiahhood or enlightenment to the Antichrist, to the devil, and he, at some point walked that thin line and stumbled the wrong way.
Fascinating. Bill, they want me to wrap up. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much to Bill Skarsgård, and thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to Pop Culture Confidential wherever you get your podcasts. Pop Culture Confidential is a part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. See you next time.